The confetti still clung to my hair, sparkling like mocking stars as I watched my life burn. My daughter, Lily, stood beside him, a mirror image of his cruel smile. The words hung in the air, sharper than any blade, the best gift? For you to be gone. They thought that was the end of Emily Carter. They were wrong. That was just the spark. If you've ever felt the unbreakable bond with your sister, subscribe now to stand with those who fight back against injustice. My world had always revolved around Lily. Every decision, every sacrifice, every breath I took was for her happiness. Even marrying Mark. I saw the red flags, the subtle digs, the way his charm seemed to evaporate the second we were alone, but he promised stability, a life Lily deserved. I convinced myself that love would grow, that his barbs were just a defense mechanism, a shield against a world that had hardened him. I was a fool. Our small town, nestled in the rolling hills of Pennsylvania, had always felt like a safe haven, a place where dreams could take root and flourish. I'd envisioned raising Lily here, watching her chase fireflies in the summer evenings, just like I had. Mark, a local contractor, seemed like the perfect partner to build that life with. He was well respected in the community, a pillar of strength, or so I thought. The early years were a carefully constructed facade. Sunday dinners with my parents, picnics by the lake, the annual town fair, we played the part of the perfect family. But behind closed doors, the cracks began to widen. Mark's criticisms became more frequent, more pointed. My dreams of opening a small bookstore were dismissed as frivolous, my attempts to connect with other women in town were met with jealousy and suspicion. He slowly chipped away at my confidence, isolating me from the people I loved. Lily's birthday party was supposed to be a turning point. I'd poured my heart and soul into planning it, a vibrant celebration of her 10th year. A bouncy house dominated the backyard, a rainbow of balloons danced in the breeze, and the aroma of freshly baked cupcakes filled the air. I remember the way Lily's eyes lit up when she saw the pony I'd hired for rides, her laughter echoing through the yard as she galloped around with her friends. It felt, for a fleeting moment, like we were a real family, the kind I'd always dreamed of. Mark, however, remained aloof, a dark cloud hovering over the festivities. He spent most of the afternoon on his phone, his brow furrowed in annoyance, barely acknowledging Lily's excitement. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the lawn, Lily gathered around me, her face flushed with happiness. That's when she said it, those words that would forever be etched into my memory, the words that shattered my world, the best gift? For you to be gone. Mark stood beside her, his hand resting on her shoulder, a smug look on his face. It was a carefully orchestrated scene, a calculated blow designed to inflict maximum pain. The realization washed over me like a tidal wave, the years of subtle manipulations, the insidious erosion of my spirit, all culminating in this moment of utter betrayal. They had planned this. They had worked together to break me, to humiliate me, to erase me from their lives. The person I trusted most was one of them. The world tilted on its axis. The laughter, the balloons, the scent of cupcakes, it all became a grotesque mockery of the life I thought I had. My breath hitched in my throat, a silent scream trapped within my chest. I looked from Lily to Mark, desperately searching for a hint of remorse, a flicker of humanity, but found only cold, calculated indifference. The ground beneath my feet felt like it was crumbling, pulling me into an abyss of despair. That night was a blur of tears and shattered illusions. I remember stumbling through the motions, ushering the remaining guests out, the forced smile plastered on my face feeling like a lead mask. Lily avoided my gaze, her silence a deafening accusation. Mark watched me, a predatory gleam in his eyes, as if he were savoring his victory. Once everyone was gone, he handed me a document, his voice devoid of emotion. divorce papers. He wanted me gone, not just from their lives, but from the house, from the town, from everything we had built, or rather, everything I thought we had built. He claimed I was unstable, unfit to be a mother, that Lily was better off without me. The words were like daggers, each one twisting deeper into my already wounded heart. I refused to sign. I couldn't. Lily was my life, my reason for being. I would fight for her, even if it meant battling the very people I loved most. The weeks that followed were a living nightmare. Mark launched a full-scale assault on my character, poisoning Lily's mind against me, painting me as the villain in their carefully constructed narrative. He used his influence in town to turn people against me, spreading rumors and half-truths, isolating me further from my friends and family. My parents, bless their hearts, tried to intervene, but Mark had already planted seeds of doubt, suggesting that I was emotionally unstable, prone to exaggeration. He even hinted at past struggles with anxiety, conveniently omitting the fact that he was the primary cause of my distress. Lily became distant, withdrawn, parroting Mark's accusations, her eyes filled with a coldness I had never seen before. Every attempt to reach her was met with resistance, every phone call unanswered, every visit turned away at the door. I felt like I was losing her, piece by piece, watching her slip away into the darkness that had consumed Mark. Sleepless nights became my constant companion, the weight of injustice pressing down on me, suffocating me with its immensity. I replayed the events of the past few years in my mind, searching for clues, for warning signs I had missed, but all I found were excuses, justifications I had made to protect myself from the truth. I had been so blind, so willing to believe in the fairy tale, that I had ignored the monster lurking beneath the surface. Desperate, I sought legal counsel, hoping to salvage what was left of my life. The lawyer, a seasoned professional with a sympathetic demeanor, listened patiently to my story, her expression growing increasingly grim as I recounted Mark's manipulations and his attempts to alienate me from Lily. She warned me that it would be an uphill battle, that Mark had considerable resources and influence, but she assured me that she would fight for me, that she would do everything in her power to protect my rights as a mother. We gathered evidence, documented Mark's behavior, and prepared for what was sure to be a long and arduous legal battle. But even with the lawyer's support, I felt like I was drowning, the waves of despair crashing over me, threatening to pull me under. Mark seemed to anticipate every move, countering my efforts with ruthless efficiency. He hired a private investigator to dig up dirt on me, twisting innocent encounters into scandalous affairs, exaggerating minor indiscretions into evidence of moral depravity. He used Lily as a pawn, manipulating her emotions, coaching her to say things that would damage my case. The stress was unbearable, the constant attacks chipping away at my resolve. I started to question myself, to wonder if maybe Mark was right, if maybe I was unfit to be a mother, if maybe Lily would be better off without me. But then I would look at old photos of Lily, her bright smile, her infectious laughter, and I would remember the love we shared, the unbreakable bond that connected us. And I would find the strength to keep fighting, to keep pushing back against the darkness that threatened to consume us both. My breaking point was the day I saw Lily in the park. She was with Mark, laughing, playing, looking every bit the happy, carefree child she used to be. But as I watched her from afar, I noticed something in her eyes, a flicker of sadness, a hint of longing. It was then that I realized that she wasn't truly happy, that she was just acting, trying to please Mark, trying to fill the void that my absence had created. A wave of protectiveness washed over me, a fierce determination to rescue her from the clutches of this man who had so skillfully manipulated us both. I knew I couldn't give up. I couldn't let him win. I had to find a way to expose him, to reveal his true nature to Lily and to the world. I had to fight back, not with anger or resentment, but with intelligence and strategy. I had to become the master of my own destiny, to reclaim the life that had been so cruelly stolen from me. The smile I gave Lily that day was a promise. A promise that I was not defeated. That I was coming back. The park incident was the final straw. That night, the silence of my empty house was deafening, each creak and groan of the old building a mocking reminder of my solitude. I wandered through the rooms, touching familiar objects, memories clinging to them like dust. Lily's drawings on the refrigerator, the half-finished quilt I was making for her, the worn copy of Alice in Wonderland we used to read together, each item a painful reminder of what I had lost. I sank into the worn armchair in the living room, the one I used to rock Lily to sleep in, and let the tears flow freely. I cried for Lily, for myself, for the shattered dreams and the stolen future. I cried until I was empty, until there were no tears left, only a hollow ache in my chest. Exhaustion claimed me, and I drifted into a fitful sleep, haunted by nightmares of Lily's cold, accusing eyes. I woke up with a start, the morning sun casting long shadows across the room. My head throbbed, my body ached, and my spirit felt crushed. I looked in the mirror, and a stranger stared back at me, a woman with hollow eyes, gaunt cheeks, and a haunted expression. I barely recognized myself. I had become a shell of my former self, consumed by grief and despair. That morning, I almost gave up. The darkness felt too overwhelming, the fight too difficult. I contemplated simply walking away, disappearing from their lives, letting Mark and Lily have what they wanted. Maybe they were right. Maybe I was the problem. Maybe Lily would be better off without me. The thought was tempting, a siren song promising release from the pain. I wandered into the kitchen, my feet dragging, and stared blankly at the countertop. A bottle of pills sat on the shelf, a potential escape from the agony. I reached for it, my fingers trembling, the weight of my despair pressing down on me. But then, I saw it. A small, hand-painted rock that Lily had given me years ago. It was decorated with a ladybug and the words "I love you, Mommy." The sight of it jolted me back to reality, a reminder of the love that still existed, the bond that couldn't be broken, no matter how hard Mark tried. I clutched the rock in my hand, its smooth surface grounding me, anchoring me to the present. Lily needed me. Even if she didn't know it, even if Mark had poisoned her mind against me, she still needed her mother. And I wouldn't abandon her. I wouldn't let Mark win. That was the turning point. The moment when I decided to stop being a victim and start fighting back. The despair didn't vanish instantly, but it was replaced by a flicker of determination, a spark of resolve that began to grow within me. I realized that I couldn't defeat Mark by playing by his rules. He was a master manipulator, a skilled liar, and he had the resources to crush me. I needed to find a different way, a way to expose his true nature without resorting to his tactics. I needed to be smarter, more cunning, and more ruthless than he ever imagined. I started small, documenting every interaction with Mark and Lily, recording every phone call, saving every email. I knew that evidence would be crucial in the upcoming legal battle. I also started researching Mark's business dealings, looking for any irregularities or inconsistencies that could be used against him. I spent hours poring over documents, following leads, and connecting the dots. The more I dug, the more I discovered. Mark's carefully constructed image as a pillar of the community was a lie, a facade built on deceit and corruption. He had been skimming money from his construction projects, bribing local officials, and engaging in shady deals that could land him in serious trouble. The information was like gold, a weapon I could use to dismantle his empire. As I immersed myself in the planning, a strange sense of calm washed over me. The fear and despair didn't disappear entirely, but they were overshadowed by a growing sense of purpose. I was no longer a victim, but a strategist, a warrior preparing for battle. I started taking care of myself again, exercising, eating healthy, and reconnecting with old friends who had offered their support. I needed to be strong, both physically and mentally, to withstand the challenges that lay ahead. I also started observing Mark more closely, studying his habits, his weaknesses, and his vulnerabilities. I realized that his greatest weakness was his arrogance, his belief that he was untouchable, that he could get away with anything. He underestimated me, seeing me as a weak, emotional woman who could easily be manipulated. That was his mistake. He didn't realize that he had awakened a sleeping giant, a force of nature that would stop at nothing to protect her daughter and reclaim her life. The day they tried to end me was the day revenge was born. I smiled. I acted broken. But I was recording everything. They thought they were untouchable. They were wrong. The change in me was subtle, a shift in the tectonic plates of my soul. I agreed to Mark's terms for mediation, acting agreeable, almost defeated. I even started attending couples counseling, a charade I embraced wholeheartedly. I smiled sweetly at the therapist, echoing Mark's concerns about my emotional instability, all the while meticulously documenting every session with a hidden voice recorder disguised as a pen. Mark, predictably, ate it up, basking in the glow of his perceived victory. He grew careless, emboldened by my apparent surrender. He left his laptop unlocked, his phone unattended. These were the cracks I needed, the openings I would exploit. One evening, while Mark was at his weekly poker game, I accidentally stumbled upon his email account. It was a treasure trove of incriminating evidence, emails detailing his shady business deals, messages to his mistress, even correspondence with his lawyer outlining his strategy to discredit me in court. I downloaded everything onto a secure, encrypted drive, making sure to cover my tracks. I even planted a fake email, a fabricated message from a fictitious admirer, designed to stoke his paranoia and further distract him. My days became a carefully orchestrated dance of deception. I would spend hours researching forensic accounting, learning how to trace his hidden assets, how to uncover his web of lies. I consulted with a private investigator, a discreet professional who specialized in corporate fraud. He helped me analyze the financial records I had obtained, identifying the shell corporations and offshore accounts Mark was using to conceal his illicit gains. The tension was a constant companion, a low hum beneath the surface of my carefully constructed facade. There were close calls, moments when I thought Mark suspected something, when his eyes would linger on me a little too long, a flicker of doubt in his gaze. But I remained calm, unwavering, my resolve fueled by the burning desire for justice. One afternoon, Lily came home from school with a drawing she had made in art class. It was a picture of our family, but I was conspicuously absent. When I asked her about it, she shrugged, her eyes filled with a sadness that mirrored my own. "Daddy said you don't live here anymore," she mumbled, avoiding my gaze. The words were like a knife twisting in my heart. That night, I stayed up late, poring over the evidence I had gathered, my determination hardening with each passing hour. I knew I was close, that the day of reckoning was drawing near. I started making preparations, securing a safe house for Lily and me, transferring funds to a separate account, and alerting the authorities to Mark's illegal activities, providing them with the evidence they needed to launch an investigation. I even contacted a journalist, a seasoned reporter known for her investigative work, and shared my story with her, providing her with the documents and recordings I had collected. I knew that going public would be risky, that it would expose me to scrutiny and criticism, but I was willing to take that chance if it meant protecting Lily and bringing Mark to justice. The journalist was initially skeptical, but after reviewing the evidence, she became convinced of my sincerity and agreed to help me expose the truth. The final piece of the puzzle fell into place when I discovered Mark's plan to take Lily out of the country. He had booked a one-way ticket to Switzerland, intending to disappear with her, beyond the reach of the courts and the authorities. The realization sent a jolt of adrenaline through my veins. I knew I had to act fast. I alerted the authorities, providing them with the flight details and a photograph of Mark and Lily. I also contacted the airline, informing them that Lily was a minor and that her father did not have my consent to take her out of the country. The anticipation was almost unbearable, the weight of the impending confrontation pressing down on me. I spent the next few days in a state of heightened alert, monitoring Mark's movements, anticipating his next move. I knew he was growing increasingly suspicious, that he sensed something was amiss. He became more controlling, more possessive of Lily, rarely letting her out of his sight. But I remained patient, biding my time, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. I installed hidden cameras throughout the house, capturing his every move, documenting his abusive behavior, and recording his conversations with Lily. I wanted to make sure that there was no doubt in anyone's mind about his true nature, that he couldn't deny the evidence I had gathered. The exact day they tried to end me, I exposed the truth. The day of the airport was a blur of calculated movements and suppressed panic. I drove Lily to Mark's house that morning, a knot of dread tightening in my stomach with each passing mile. I forced a smile, pretending everything was normal, as I helped her pack her suitcase, my hands trembling slightly as I folded her favorite pajamas. Mark watched us, his eyes narrowed, a smug look on his face. He thought he had won. He had no idea that every step he took was being meticulously documented, every word he spoke was being recorded. As we pulled up to the airport, I saw the authorities waiting, their faces grim, their presence a silent promise of justice. I hugged Lily tightly, whispering in her ear that I loved her, that everything would be all right. I watched as she walked away with Mark, her small hand clutching his, her eyes looking back at me with a mixture of confusion and fear. It was the hardest thing I had ever done, but I knew it was necessary. I had to let him lead her into the trap. The next few hours were agonizing. I waited at a nearby hotel, pacing the floor, jumping at every sound. The journalist I had contacted was with me, her presence a source of strength and reassurance. She had arranged for a photographer to be at the airport, capturing the moment of Mark's arrest, ensuring that the truth would be revealed to the world. Finally, the phone rang. It was one of the authorities. "We have him," he said, his voice firm. "He's been taken into custody. Your daughter is safe." Relief washed over me, so potent it almost knocked me off my feet. I sank into a chair, tears streaming down my face. It was over. Or so I thought. The journalist squeezed my hand. "It's not over yet," she said. "The real battle is just beginning." She was right. The arrest was just the first domino in a chain of events that would expose Mark's true nature and bring his empire crashing down. The news of Mark's arrest spread like wildfire, igniting a media frenzy. The journalist published her story, detailing Mark's crimes, his deception, and his attempts to flee the country with Lily. The article was accompanied by photographs of Mark being taken into custody, his face contorted in rage and disbelief. The public outcry was immediate and overwhelming. People were outraged by Mark's betrayal, his abuse of power, and his callous disregard for the law. His company's stock plummeted, his business partners distanced themselves from him, and his reputation was shattered beyond repair. The authorities launched a full-scale investigation into Mark's business dealings, uncovering a web of corruption and fraud that stretched back for years. They seized his assets, froze his accounts, and charged him with a long list of crimes, including embezzlement, bribery, and child endangerment. As the investigation unfolded, more and more people came forward with stories of Mark's misconduct. Former employees accused him of harassment and discrimination. Business associates revealed his shady deals and illegal practices. Even members of his own family turned against him, disgusted by his behavior. The carefully constructed facade that Mark had built around himself crumbled, revealing the ugly truth beneath. He was a monster, a predator, a man who would stop at nothing to get what he wanted. And now, he was facing the consequences of his actions. He tried to fight back, hiring a team of high-priced lawyers, attempting to discredit the evidence against him, and launching a smear campaign against me. But it was no use. The truth was too powerful, the evidence too overwhelming. He was trapped, cornered, with no way out. The courtroom was packed on the day of Mark's trial. The atmosphere was electric, charged with anticipation. I sat in the front row, my eyes fixed on Mark, his face pale and drawn, his demeanor subdued. He looked like a shadow of his former self, a broken man stripped of his power and prestige. The prosecution presented a mountain of evidence, meticulously documenting Mark's crimes, his lies, and his betrayal. They called witnesses who testified to his abusive behavior, his fraudulent schemes, and his attempts to evade justice. Mark's lawyers tried to defend him, arguing that he was a victim of a conspiracy, that the evidence against him was fabricated, and that I was motivated by revenge. But their arguments fell flat. The jury saw through their lies, recognizing Mark for what he was, a guilty man. After deliberating for several hours, the jury returned with their verdict. Guilty. On all counts. A gasp swept through the courtroom as the verdict was read. I closed my eyes, tears of relief streaming down my face. Justice had been served. Mark was sentenced to a long prison term, his life effectively over. He would spend the rest of his days behind bars, a pariah, forgotten by the world. As he was led away, he turned and looked at me, his eyes filled with hatred and rage. "You haven't won," he spat. "This isn't over." I just smiled. "Yes, it is," I said. "It's finally over." But even as I said the words, a shiver ran down my spine. I knew that Mark was a dangerous man, that he was capable of anything. And I couldn't shake the feeling that he would find a way to get his revenge, even from behind bars. The day they thought they had destroyed me, was the day I became truly untouchable. The final act played out with the precision of a surgeon. With Mark behind bars, the journalist released the full, unedited recordings from the hidden cameras in our home. They revealed everything: his verbal attacks on Lily, the manipulation, the constant belittling designed to erode her self-worth. There was even footage of him shoving her when she refused to practice the piano, his face contorted in a mask of pure rage. The effect was nuclear. The public, already incensed by his financial crimes, now saw him for what he truly was, an abuser, a monster hiding behind a veneer of respectability. Even his remaining allies deserted him, their reputations tarnished by association. His legal team, facing mounting pressure and the undeniable weight of the evidence, began to defect, one by one. The charity he founded, once his pride and joy, was stripped of its funding and renamed, its board members resigning in shame. His name became a curse, synonymous with greed, cruelty, and betrayal. He was erased from the social fabric of our town, his legacy reduced to ashes. His mansion, once a symbol of his success, stood empty, a monument to his spectacular fall. The divorce proceedings were swift and decisive. I was granted full custody of Lily, and Mark was ordered to pay a substantial amount in child support, though I knew he would likely find a way to avoid his obligations, even from prison. But that didn't matter. I had won the only battle that truly mattered: I had protected my daughter. Lily, initially traumatized by the events, slowly began to heal. With the help of a therapist, she processed her emotions, learned to trust again, and rediscovered her joy in life. She excelled in school, made new friends, and pursued her passions with renewed vigor. She was a survivor, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. As for me, I emerged from the ashes stronger and wiser. I started a foundation dedicated to helping women and children who had been victims of domestic abuse, using my experience to empower others to break free from their cycles of pain. I found purpose in my pain, turning my personal tragedy into a force for good. I testified before Congress, advocating for stricter laws to protect victims of abuse and hold perpetrators accountable. I became a voice for the voiceless, a beacon of hope for those who had lost everything. The day Mark learned about the foundation, about my advocacy, about Lily's healing, a letter arrived, postmarked from the correctional facility. It was filled with the usual venom, the predictable threats, the delusional belief that he was the victim, not the perpetrator. But this time I didn't feel fear. I felt pity. He was trapped in his own prison of hate and regret, unable to escape the consequences of his actions. I filed the letter away, adding it to the mountain of evidence that documented his depravity. It was just another reminder of the monster I had defeated. Time moved on. Years passed. Lily grew into a confident, compassionate young woman, a shining example of what it means to overcome adversity. She went on to college, pursuing a degree in social work, determined to dedicate her life to helping others. I remarried, finding love and happiness with a kind and supportive man who cherished Lily as his own. We built a life filled with laughter, love, and security, a stark contrast to the darkness of my past. One day, I received a call from the prison. Mark had passed away, a sudden heart attack, they said. I felt nothing. No joy, no sadness, no relief. Just emptiness. He was gone, his reign of terror finally over. He left this world alone, unmourned, his name a whisper in the wind. They lost everything. I just smiled. Because they tried to take my daughter. They tried to take my life. And in the process, they awakened a force they could never comprehend. Revenge isn't sweet. It's necessary. It's a primal instinct, a desperate act of self-preservation when all other avenues have been exhausted. It's about reclaiming your power, about standing up for yourself, about protecting those you love. It's about sending a message that you will not be a victim, that you will not be silenced, that you will not be broken. It's about ensuring that justice is served, even when the system fails you. It's about finding peace in the aftermath, knowing that you did everything in your power to right the wrongs that were committed against you. Would you have done the same? Let me know in the comments. Subscribe for more justice.